Hello folks, my name is Doug, and today I want to talk to you guys about epistemology, reality, views of truth, and worldview. You may be viewing this on YouTube, or you might be even viewing this on our website, www.laborsministry.org. You may be asking yourself, why am I even mentioning something about philosophy here on this site? And folks, I'll tell you why. Because whether or not you realize it or know it, each of these things affect you every single day. Epistemology is basically our basis for knowledge acquisition. How do we attain the things that we know? How do we know what we know? So it's going to answer, we'll ask two questions and then answer two questions. First of all, it's going to ask, what do I know? And then secondly, how do I know it? And it's going to go about answering those things. And you can break this thing up, folks, in really a variety of ways. But basically I put down three here. One is discovery. And what is discovery? Discovery is basically influenced by our own personal experiences. It may be making a discovery like finding a better way to make a piece of technology equipment, making a computer, finding a better way to make a computer. It may be finding an artifact. It may be discovering something else in our solar system. So it's drawn primarily from personal experience. We could also put observation in this category. And one of the best ways is to say, well, I can touch a hot stove and realize if it's hot or not. In Revelation, we are depending upon a source. So our source has to be correct here. This is where someone may tell us that this stove is hot here. And this could be a person that gives us information, or more importantly, where I'm going to be going is God. And this is something else, folks. There are two things in theology related to what we call revelation. One of them is called general revelation. In general revelation, Romans 1 will be telling us that from the outside created world, we know that there is a God. Ecclesiastes is going to tell us that God has put eternity into the heart of man. So, then the second way we know about revelation is something called special or specific revelation. And that's where we start talking about the Bible, the Scriptures, because without the Scriptures, we would know that there's a God from general revelation, from just the outside created world, and being able to contemplate that, where I'm going here in a second, contemplate the idea of God, or that there is a God that is at least existing. But without special revelation, without specific revelation, without the Scriptures, we would not know what kind of God this is. And ultimately, specific revelation is Jesus Christ. So, that's why I mention this here. And that's how we know epistemologically that God exists, and why we know that the Bible is correct. Our third thing that we're going to go with here is contemplation. And this is a secondary way of knowing. We can think, at least in our minds, that a stove could be hot. We could think in our minds that something could be in existence. Second place I want to go here is reality. All of these things, by the way, folks, are all connected. So what is reality? Well, the specific study of reality is called ontology. And if you've ever heard in apologetics, which is a defense for the faith, that's what the word apology means in Greek, is a defense for something. It's not like saying I'm sorry, although that's how the word has been understood over the years. But an apology is a defense of something. So Plato's Apology, which is a book about Socrates' defense for his life. So the specific study of reality is called ontology. You may have even heard the ontological argument for the existence of God. So we can understand reality, we could basically break this up into really three ways. The material, the cognitive, and then the spiritual. And humans actually exist in all three realms. So the material is concerned with the physical, tangible stuff. The stuff that's made up of matter, the stuff that's made up of energy, of our solar system, of the earth, this this physical plane here that I'm touching. Second one would be the cognitive. It's really the realm of language and how we choose to express ourselves. It's the realm of the mind. It's the realm of our thoughts, of our motives, of our desires, and these kinds of things. The behavioral sciences to study the cognitive, you basically have three behavioral sciences: anthropology, sociology, and then psychology. Anthropology studies culture, and sociology studies all the things that pertain to society, like government and like law, education, religion, even the family. And then, it's not on the board here, but psychology studies the person. It even can cover the family, but it specifically will be covering the individual. And so that's the cognitive sciences, basically. And then you have the spiritual. The spiritual just pertains to this world that controls this world, or that is also influenced here in this world. So the spiritual will be, of course, God, angels, demons, those kinds of things. And theology specifically looks at that, and I would even also add philosophy, but specifically it's going to be theology. And then, so next we have views of truth. And there are different ways that we can know or be able to at least validate what's true. One of them is called coherence, and I'll just kind of read for you here what the coherence view of truth is. It depends upon the person saying it that it's true. It's a statement that's validated as false if the one proclaiming it is false. So in postmodernism, they say, well, there is no truth. And according to that coherent view of truth, it's basically self-validation or self-invalidation. Pragmatic view of truth is depends upon the actual results. Millard Erickson, he's a theologian, he states that truth in this context is what is good or useful for us to believe. So at one time in America, a belief in God was very, very strong. I mean, all of our founders, besides, well, all of them believed in God. Only one of them, Benjamin Franklin, was probably a deist, or some form of deism. The rest of them were Christians, and even Thomas Jefferson, I believe, was a Christian. So what happened from, that time of the 18th century until now is this belief in God has slowly been eroded away. And even in postmodernism, people may say, well, that's true for you if there's a God, but that's not necessarily true for me. Or maybe your belief in God is different from my belief in God. Our truths can be different. So pragmatic truth is it really only works, it's only useful if the society thinks that it is practical. Correspondence view of truth, which is really what I go with, is basically looking out here to the external world and then seeing whatever is true out there, if it corresponds with the rest of reality, if it's true or not. A correspondence view of truth depends upon outside information to be valid. Millard Erickson states that if something is true, then it must correspond with the rest of reality. So if something is going to be true, it has to correspond with the rest of reality. So for instance, if I say that I ate breakfast this morning, well, that statement has to correspond with the rest of reality. Well, I did not have breakfast this morning, so that's a false statement. So, remember I put down here reality. Correspondence view of truth has to match reality. It has to match what we actually see in the physical world, or in the cognitive, or in the spiritual world. Lastly, what I want to add here is worldview. All of these things, folks, how you gather information and understand it, how you understand and interpret reality, your particular views of truth, everything, folks, segue right here into worldview. And what is a worldview that you might ask? A worldview is basically a belief system as a whole. It's a set of assumptions or beliefs about reality that affect how we think, and it affects also how we live. So where do we get our worldview from? Mainly you're going to get it from your culture around you. You're going to get it from the society. You're going to get it from your family. And you'll also get it from your personal experiences. A worldview is always flowing. You're always adding information into your worldview, and you're always interpreting it. And this is the important thing here, folks. Worldview can be understood as sort of a grid. I've kind of made a grid here, and a worldview is sort of, it's a lens by which I see the world. It's a lens by which you see the world. So if you believe that there is a God, then that influences your worldview. If you believe in, say, if you don't believe in God, but you believe in evolution, that directly affects how you see the world around you, and it's definitely going to affect the way that you see people and the way that you actually treat them in the real world. I mean, if you really think that people are nothing more than random biological mistakes or happenstances, and that there is no point to life, there is no ultimate kind of reality, that all that there is just the material world, that's definitely going to affect by the way that you really act and the way that you think about people and think about your life and other things. But at the same time, if you believe that humans are a specific creation of God, that's also going to affect how you treat them. It will affect you dramatically how you treat them, because you're going to be treating them as special creations of God that deserve respect, that deserve love, that they deserve to be treated well. But so that's basically it, folks. So we've talked about epistemology. How do we know what we know? We've talked about reality. Talked about the different realms of reality. We've talked about views of truth. And we've also talked about worldview. I just want to mention a couple of books here. This is a book that was particularly helpful for me in college. I'll try to show it up here so that you can see it. It's called The Integration of the Behavioral Sciences and Theology. And you can see their authors there. That's where I got my information on epistemology from. And also, this book is really helpful. This is called Foundations of Christian Thought. It's a basic book on worldview. This one was also very helpful. Here's a really good book. It's called The Universe Next Door, and the author's name is James Sire. He talks about different kinds of worldviews. It's very, very interesting. And you can see from all these things, folks, how worldview really, really does affect us. Again, folks, you may not think of these things in quite this way. You may not really have ever even heard of the term epistemology. But there are things, folks, that you decipher all the time. So like if you watch MSNBC, let's say, they're going to give you an epistemology. And it's going to come from a progressive, communistic worldview. Their view of things are dramatically different than, say, what you would get from a conservative media outlet. So what you're going to get on this website is definitely a conservative outlook on things and a very conservative view of the Scriptures. So I hope this stuff has been helpful for you. We will be going into the Scriptures next. After we will be looking at the Scriptures. What does the Scriptures have an epistemology? Do the Scriptures have, what do they say about reality? What does it say about truth? What does the Bible say about worldview? Does the Scriptures have a worldview? And we're going to be looking at things from that angle.